and welcome to a coffee and chat with Stage Masters. I'm joined today by Joshua Malina and Simon Yadoo, stars of What We Talk About When We Talk About Anne Frank, on the set of What We Talk About When We Talk About Anne Frank.
Very exciting.
Thank you both for letting me into your kitchen.
For being
I think actually, Josh, that's more to you. Thank you for letting me into your kitchen.
It is technically mine.
How does it feel to be, part of this really hilarious and, emotionally resonating production at the moment? How does that feel to be part of this show?
For me, it's great. I like the fact that we're telling this story at the moment. It's been a very tumultuous time. We were making it, we had to sort of keep updating the script because every single day something else seemed to be happening. Personally, before I did this show, despite being a Jewish actor, I'd never really played in Jewish roles. So I've gone straight in with a Hasidic character at a very precarious moment. So it's been interesting to sort of address those discussions head on and have some of the chat that maybe people are having at home but they don't quite finish. We finished them.
I mean, that's definitely the thing that I found the most when I saw the show last year, during the first run of it. You're not shying away from any topics, and that's what I think some of the beauty of the script is, and also your performances, is you're very much, like you said, addressing things head on, and for you as well, kind of taking on the Hasidic role within the show is possibly quite challenging as well.
It's quite a wild ride.
Yeah,
there's some things that I come out with that are challenging. But there's also a lot of humour in him as well, I think, and there was a humanising aspect to the character.
Sure.
But we have to be true to what a Hasidic man who lives in Jerusalem would believe and would think. So it's interesting to put that across. I haven't come across too much trouble off stage, which is nice. People sort of seem to think it's very even-handed, because obviously your character comes from a more secular perspective. How
have you found taking on this? Because obviously you're coming not from taking on a Hasidic role within the show, a more kind of modern Orthodox role. What have you found that audience?
Well, I'm delighted to have hit the old Jewish man phase of my career.
How much acting is involved versus,
That's an interesting question. Yeah, I agree with much, but not all of Phil's take on various world affairs. It's deeply meaningful to me to be part of something like this. And I like that you described the show, the play, as hilarious, because I do always feel, first and foremost, we're going out there to do a comedy.
Yeah.
And want to make the play enjoyable and funny, and the audiences really react to it. But it's got a lot of substance, and it looks at issues in addition to current events in Israel-Palestine. It examines things like family and faith and identity and friendship, which are things that a universal audience responds to, which is nice.
When I saw the show as a Jewish reviewer that was in the audience, I found myself loving it from the get-go. What I wasn't sure of was whether other reviewers that weren't Jewish, that didn't come from that kind of cultural resonance and necessarily understanding everything that you were talking about, whether they would get it. But the beauty of actually talking to those people, from my point of view, was that they still loved it. Have you found that with other audiences that have come, that you don't need to be Jewish to enjoy the show?
Absolutely, 100%. I think that's a tribute to Nathan Englander, the writer, the playwright, because he created something that really is universal, even though it's set in a very specific sort of world. I think it speaks to anybody who has family and friends and who cares about things like faith. I find that the non-Jewish audience, I feel like sometimes you can almost sense them early in the play looking to the Jewish audience going, is it okay to laugh at this? Once they're getting entree into our world, it's okay, you can laugh.
Yeah.
It's interesting to feel that. And every now and then I walk off stage and I go, I think it's a heavily Jewish audience tonight, or not so much. But and one of the things I know that when Nathan wrote the original short story on which the play is based in 2011, he found that it really spoke. He would go and he would do readings of the short story, and people from different backgrounds would say, oh, my family played a similar game, because there's an element of the play where all the characters involved play a game of, were there a second Holocaust? Who would save you? Who would hide you? Whom of the people you know would risk their lives for yours? And people from all different groups of people said, oh yeah, we do that. We do that with slaves. And someone else, he was saying he was reading it in Spain, and people were saying, oh, we play the Basque separatist game. So I think he's created a very specific world that speaks to everybody.
For anyone that doesn't actually know what the show is about, who's going to be watching, could you summarise very kind of briefly what people can expect from the show?
My headline that I've always been saying is, this is Jews Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
It's very good. That's very good.
It's pretty accurate. It's pretty accurate. Yeah.
Two couples, one secular, one Orthodox. Wives within those couples grew up together in New York at yeshiva, so they both came from a sort of fairly Orthodox background, married two different men, and went in opposite directions. Shoshana, who's married to Yuri, my character, they're over from Israel to visit Yuri's parents, and she reaches out on Instagram, which is already a bit of an alarm bell, and says, look, we'd love to come and see you, and what we watch is their afternoon together. And there are some hidden things that come out, but obviously there's a kind of cultural clash, despite the fact they're all Jewish and they've got very different attitudes. And because it's set completely contemporary, it's happening to the backdrop of now the ceasefire, but when we started doing the show, the sort of escalating difficulties that came out the back of October 7th. And it's all in there, really. The clash between secular and Orthodox Judaism, how to raise your family in a Jewish way, what it means to be Jewish, it's sort of all in there. What's interesting, I think, is that when Nathan and Patrick were working on the script, they sort of, in the movie version of it was October the 6th, and they went, well, final full stop, that's it, the play's ready. And then the next morning, obviously, what happened.
Sure.
And they had to go back to it. But I think it gives a tragic background to the piece, but it gives it that extra fire, because although the issues in Palestine and in Israel are always in the background, the fact that they came flying to the fore, tragically, means that all of the interactions are that much more charged.
Yeah. With the show obviously coming back to the theatre for this kind of second run, the second life for it, thankfully, has there been a lot of script changes since things like the ceasefire happened since then, or has the script very much stayed exactly
I would say
the same?
there have been small tweaks that nonetheless leave the audience, because I talk to people afterwards, feeling as if it were written yesterday or that morning.
Okay.
So there are small, I think, nuanced elements that sort of reflect things as they happen. I salute them for doing it. They could have presented this play in the pre-October 7th version, but I think it would have played a little bit like a museum piece where many in the audience would have been thinking, they're discussing all this, but so much has happened since. So I think it was a bold and well-executed plan to update it.
When I saw the show, I very much thought exactly that. This felt like the script had been worked on that day even, literally up to the minute, just trying to make it as relevant as possible.
Which is exciting, and sometimes I'll watch something and feel, in this sort of cliched way, it feels ripped from the headlines, and I think this avoids that. This feels like it's supercharged and more relevant and germane because of its immediacy.
As Jewish actors, how does it feel to be part of a production that is so primarily Jewish at its core in every way? I mean, you've got so many huge shows at the moment that focus on this kind of element of Judaism, such as like Giant at the moment with John Lithgow, but this show is just, it doesn't shy away from anything whatsoever, and to have that on in central London with such a diverse community around, how does that mean to you guys to be able to do that?
It feels risky. It's a little bit like airing dirty linen and letting you see, the secret, private family discussions that we have. But I think the other side is that it also reaches the audience and has them understand that there is no monolithic Jewish perspective on anything, and that there's a great breadth of thought on all these kinds of issues. And I think that's a benefit for people to realize. And people generally live in their own echo chambers. I mean, altogether, whatever your background is, most people live and discuss things with people that are like-minded. And I like that the play posits a world where you can have the uncomfortable conversations, because that's where progress happens.
Yeah, that was a really lovely way to potentially end this. So,
I'm going to blow one more time on my water, pretending it's coffee.
I don't give away the illusion.
I've got real coffee.
I think you're the first guest I've ever had on this that's actually had a coffee.
Really?
I'm not going to tell other people that, but yes. Cheers, both of you. Thank you so much for joining me, and best of luck with the rest of the run.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Cheers.